Cedar Point is located in Sandusky, Ohio, and is widely regarded as one of the best amusement parks in the world. I've been here a total of 4 times, my first visit coming in July of 2014, and I can safely say I am stupidly jealous of anyone who calls this their home park. Yes, I am looking at you. But I think I speak for a lot of people. I don't think any park in the country, and maybe even the world, can boast quality and quantity better than Cedar Point when it comes to their coaster collection. I've seen a lot of enthusiasts rank up the coasters at this park, so I felt like I would give it my shot today. These are the coasters at Cedar Point, ranked from worst to best. Out of the 17 coasters at this park, I've ridden 16 of them, as the only one that I haven't ridden is Wilderness Run, and I'm too tall to ride that without a child. And since me and my fiance don't have any plans to have kids in the near future, that is very unlikely to change. Oh, by the way, my name is The Quacken, and if you haven't yet, then please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to stay notified when I upload new videos. At number 16, I have Corkscrew, the aerodynamics looping coaster. This opened in 1976 and was the first coaster to feature 3 inversions. Unfortunately, the ride experience has not passed the test of time. It's a very short ride and it's pretty uncomfortable. It's hard to find a coaster that's more outdated than this. It definitely is in my top 20 worst coasters list, as this ride is just not pleasant at all. At number 15, I have Woodstock Express, the Vekoma Jr. coaster. I actually think that this is a pretty respectable family coaster, and I had more fun on this ride than I did on Corkscrew. It is a family coaster, definitely made for the little ones, so I really felt like I could only rank it so high. But dare I say, I had more fun on this than on Corkscrew, not only on that, but on the than I did on the next coaster on this list. And at number 14, I have the Cedar Creek Mine Ride, the aerodynamics mine train. The main reason I rank this above Woodstock Express is A, because Woodstock Express is definitely made for the little ones, and is pretty boring for adults. But Cedar Creek Mine Ride definitely has the superior setting. It has a great setting over the water, but unfortunately the ride is full of pretty bad transitions and jerky turns, and given that these aero mine trains are not very accommodating for larger guests, it makes the ride pretty uncomfortable for adults. At number 13, I have Iron Dragon, the aerodynamic suspended coaster. Suspended coasters are one of my favorite coaster models from Aero, and even though Iron Dragon is probably the weakest of the 4 Aero suspended coasters I've ridden, it's not really a knock on this coaster, as I feel like it does what it's meant to do. It's definitely more of a family coaster and not more of a thrill ride like some other Aero suspended coasters can be, but much like the Cedar Creek Mine Ride, it has a nice setting over the water, and the fog effect right after the second lift is pretty cool. But unfortunately the rest of the ride is pretty lame, so that's why it ranks pretty low on this list. At number 12 I have Rougarou, the B&M floorless coaster. This coaster started its life as a stand-up coaster called Mantis, and became the first coaster to receive B&M's stand-up to floorless conversion when it received new floorless trains in 2015. I never rode it as Mantis, so I really can't compare that to Rougarou, but I haven't heard anyone say that they preferred the stand-up Mantis over the floorless Rougarou. But unfortunately, Rougarou is pretty shaky, honestly. It has a pretty noticeable rattle. and even keeping my head forward couldn't save me on this ride. I do think it's a fine ride. It's definitely not a bad coaster, but unfortunately, it just gets way overshadowed by all of the other amazing coasters at this park. At number 11, I have Wicked Twister, the Intamin Impulse Coaster. The Intamin Impulse Coaster was a pretty big thing at the turn of the millennium. Unfortunately, nowadays, it's seen as a one-trick pony, and almost kind of a gimmicky coaster. And that's kind of true. Wicked Twister is one of the least popular coasters at Cedar Point, and even though it's technically the world's tallest inverted coaster, it's not usually seen that way because it's not a complete circuit, but it stands over 200 feet tall, and it is a fun ride. But unfortunately, I've always felt that these Intamin Impulses are just one-trick ponies, and I've never been the biggest fan of these things. It's one of the least popular coasters at this park, so I could definitely see Cedar Point shipping this off to another smaller Cedar Fair park that could probably appreciate it more. Okay, now on to the top 10. At number 10, I have Valraven, the B&M Dive Coaster. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I really think restraints can make or break a ride. Now, I don't have too much of an issue with the soft strap restraints on I-305 and some other coasters because I feel like those are there for safety, especially for a ride like Intimidator 305. But on Valraven, with the vest restraints, I feel like Cedar Point should have gone with the classic over-the-shoulder restraints, because the vest restraints absolutely kill all of the airtime on that first drop, which is why I much prefer rides like Griffith and Shikra, even though they have shorter layouts, because you actually get some good airtime on that drop. But on Valraven, with the vests, you don't leave your seat. At number 9, I have Blue Streak, the PTC Woody Coaster. This is the oldest operating coaster at Cedar Point, and it still holds up as a very fun ride. In 2014, I found it to be a little bit rough, but I don't know what kind of maintenance Cedar Point has been putting into this coaster, but they should keep it up, because it seems like with age, I don't know what's been going on, but with age, this coaster just keeps getting better. And in 2019, I got a very smooth and airtime-filled ride. This is seriously one of the most underrated coasters I've ridden, and it definitely found a spot in my top 10 classic Woodies as well. At number 8, I have Gemini, the Aerodynamics Hybrid Coaster. This thing is just so much fun. Granted, in 2015 and 2016, on my first rides on this thing, it was a little bit on the rough side. However, I got back on it in August of 2019, and it was smooth and it had some really good airtime. This is like a mine train on steroids, as the two sides race in an airtime-filled ride, and it's a very long ride too, which is always a good thing. So because of how smooth my ride in 2019 was, I had to move it up in my rankings. At number 7, I have Magnum XL200, the Aerodynamics Hypercoaster. I've seen some enthusiasts rank this in the top 5 coasters at this park, and even top 3, but I say not so fast. It's definitely a good ride, but I don't think it's nearly as good as some people have made it out to be. And there are 2 main reasons for that. One is because of the funky aero transitions this coaster has. The jank on all of these transitions is strong, and no amount of maintenance can fix it. Secondly, these aero hyper lap bars are very heavy, so it's hard to keep them up throughout the ride. And given the abundance of bad transitions on this coaster, you probably will be getting stapled by the end of the ride. So even though that final run of airtime is one of the best finales for any coaster, because of the janky transitions that final run of airtime can be kind of painful. Granted, if you're in the back, that finale will make you fear for your life. So it's an awesome finale. But unfortunately, it can be pretty painful at times. At number 6, I have Gatekeeper, the B&M Wing Coaster. This thing opened in 2013 and is probably one of the smoothest coasters I've ever ridden. This thing just was magic carpet smooth. It has a really cool layout and it looks beautiful at the front of the park, especially with those keyholes serving as a nice welcome sign for guests. It's just such a fun ride. Now, I know I slammed Valraven because of the vest restraints, but on Gatekeeper, this is an inversion-based ride, and you're really not focused on any big drops or airtime, so I don't have too much of an issue with them on the wing coasters. It's just on the dive coasters that and even the one invert that I've ridden, Banshee at Kings Island with the vests, I wasn't a big fan of. But if a ride's going to have big drops or airtime, I'm not going to be a big fan of the vests. But since this is an inversion-based ride, I don't have too much of an issue with it, even if it does crush your torso. At number 5, I have Raptor, the B&M inverted coaster. This is one of the original inverts, and it still holds up as a great ride today. It's a pretty long ride with 6 inversions. It just dominates the Cedar Point midway. Even though I'm not a big fan of the cute green color scheme, I think the layout is really cool, especially that really unique straight first drop, which is definitely not seen on too many B&M inverts. At least if you're in the back, it feels like a straight drop because it just curves and then it just straightens out, which is kind of interesting. But it's still a fun ride. I don't find this ride rough. Even though I've heard some people complain about a rattle, I really haven't noticed that on this coaster. Now, I have not ridden this with mid-course brakes turned off, but I've heard that the second half is legendary without the mid-course brakes. The ride itself, as normal, is pretty forceful. But I would love to get a ride where the mid-course brakes are turned off. At number 4, I have Top Thrill Dragster, the Intamin Stratacoaster. This coaster is just a huge adrenaline rush. It's smooth. I love the open feeling of these Intamin T-bars. And even though it's a very stupidly short ride, it's so much fun. I credit this coaster as being the one that really got me into becoming an enthusiast. When I first rode it back in July of 2014, it gave me such a huge sense of accomplishment, knowing that I could just about conquer any coaster that I wanted to. At number 3, I have Millennium Course, the Intamin Giga Coaster. The world's first Giga Coaster is such a fun ride. Yes, it is indeed a little bit forceless. However, that first overbank right after the first drop, I have been known to gray out on it, but the rest of the ride, yeah, it is pretty forceless. However, I do think it is a pretty well-rounded coaster, as it has moments that focus on speed, airtime, and just a you-know-what hair of intensity. At number 2, I have Maverick, the Intamin Blitz Coaster. Cedar Point has been blessed with 3 fantastic Intamins over the last 20 years, and really, it was actually over the span of 7 years. This was their latest creation. Maverick opened up with the hard plastic restraints that everyone hated, and they were converted to the soft straps. Now, I never rode it with the hard plastic ones, but I appreciate the change, because I can just imagine how awful it would have been. Yes, I'm not the biggest fan of the soft straps, but I feel like if Maverick had just a lap bar, you would get whiplash. Which honestly would only add to the feeling of riding a wild horse. Because let's face it, Maverick is basically themed to a horse that follows its own rules. This coaster has just about everything has something for everyone. It has a great first drop, and has a powerful second launch, it has some airtime, and it even goes upside down. And it has tons and tons of rapid fire transitions. This coaster easily finds a place in my overall top 10. And finally, at number 1, I don't think this should come as a surprise to anybody, but it's Steel Vengeance, the RMC hybrid coaster. This opened up as the world's tallest, fastest, steepest, and longest, and you name it, hybrid coaster when it opened in 2018. I finally got out to Cedar Point back in August, and I was blown away by this thing, and I still had high expectations for it. It's not quite my number 1 overall coaster, but it's very close. There's just so much to love about Steel Vengeance. It's smooth, it has a great first drop, tons and tons of airtime, like it just never ends. And speaking of never ending, the ride itself just never ends. It keeps on going. It is such a long ride, which is awesome. I absolutely love this thing, which is why it's my favorite coaster at Cedar Point. So that's how I rank up the coasters at Cedar Point. Let me know what you think of this list in the comments below, and if you haven't yet, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a like, and hit that bell button to stay notified when I upload new videos. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.